real question is, what is in this passage? Number one is something, and I go back into speaking in Christianese here, is the law of seed time and harvest. But this is an actual law. There are three types of laws that we have to deal with on this planet. We have physical laws. These are laws of science. That would be gravity. That would be, thermodynamics. That would be an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Law of friction. Friction will stop that motion. Okay? Those kind of things. There are rules, laws that we have to obey. Pay your taxes. There are consequences when you don't pay your taxes. Don't run red lights. There are consequences when you run red light. All these kind of things. Those are also laws that we have to obey. And then there are spiritual laws. This falls under a spiritual law. And the law is simply this. He who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will reap bountifully. God set up spiritual laws so that even he cannot break them. Right? We've read the passage of Noah with the rainbow, and he says the rainbow means that I will never flood the entire earth. And no matter what pictures of our downtown look like, the entire earth was not flooded. God will not do that because he set a promise. It's not that God can't, it's God works within limitations he puts on himself. He makes promises, and the reason he does that is so that we can count on him, right? It's not for him, it's for us. We know if he puts a law in place, we can count on that, and because God doesn't change or violate his word, then we can go and we can live our lives with that as something in place, and we don't have to worry about it changing underneath us. So one of these laws is that if you sow sparingly, you'll reap sparingly, and if you sow bountifully, you will reap bountifully. So my wife and I like to give generously to things. As God allows us to, and as God calls us to, we want to do that, and we want to do that cheerfully because we believe that we will receive back. And we have been blessed very, very big by God, and we acknowledge that, and we acknowledge that God blesses us, and we're so thankful for it. And it's most of the time not in finances that we receive that blessing. But we always have enough. We always have sufficiency to do the things that God has called us to do, and we always have sufficiency to live our lives. In Luke 6:38, it says, "Give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure you use, it will be measured back to you." And I find that passage interesting because it starts off with this, it will be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over. That's this picture of just overflowing blessing. But then he says, for the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. So when we give, are we also giving pressed down, shaken together, running over? Or are we barely dipping that scoop in? Because that's how it's going to be measured back to us. Let me ask you, can we break the law of gravity? No. Do we fly? Sometimes. But we never break the law of gravity. We actually use gravity to our advantage when we do that. I could give an example of an airplane or, helicopters, which theoretically shouldn't work, but they do. But I like the idea of a flying suit. You see these people that put on these suits and then they just jump and they fly. Do you know that the whole reason they can fly has to do with two physical laws? Lift and gravity. If it wasn't for gravity, lift wouldn't work. If it wasn't for gravity pulling them down, which is how they get their speed, they would never go fast enough to experience lift. Because you have to have more lift than you do body weight and blah, 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 all this stuff. What it is you're using of gravity to your advantage when you jump off of a cliff in a flying suit. When you jump off of a cliff not in a flying suit, you're using it to your disadvantage. We can use the law of seed time and harvest both to our disadvantage and to our advantage. When we give to others, when we give to the work of God, God supplies to us what we give. And then he often gives us extra back as a test of our heart, a test of our faithfulness. And he looks to us and says, I genuinely want to bless you, and I want to see that you're faithful.